I thought the hardest part would be being a black woman in Seoul. I didn't know the man I'd meet would change everything.
Aaliyah Thompson stepped off the plane at Incheon International Airport with one carry-on suitcase, a heart full of resolve, and the faint scent of Atlanta rain still clinging to her jacket. At 28, she had left behind a corporate job that drained her soul, a breakup that left bruises no one could see, and a city that suddenly felt too small for her dreams. Korea was her reset button, teaching English at an international academy in Gangnam, a one-year contract that promised new faces, new streets, and no reminders of the past. The airport was a whirlwind of efficiency, spotless floors, signs in crisp Hangul and English, travelers moving like they had somewhere important to be. Aaliyah felt the first real pang of being the outsider. Heads turned, not hostile, not welcoming, just curious. A mother whispered to her child, pointing subtly. An elderly man bowed slightly as he passed, more out of habit than recognition. She smiled politely, adjusted her braids into a high ponytail, and followed the signs to the AREX train. Seoul greeted her like a fever dream. Skyscrapers pierced the January sky, their glass reflecting endless strings of neon. Gangnam Station spat her out into a sea of perfectly coordinated fashion, long wool coats, surgical masks, and boots that clicked like metronomes on the heated pavement. She hailed a taxi, fumbling with her phone's translator app. "Yeoksamdong, please, the Iris building." The driver nodded without a word, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror once, twice. Aaliyah stared out the window as the city blurred past, billboards for skincare empires, coffee shops glowing like jewels, couples sharing earbuds under street lamps. It was beautiful and isolating all at once. Her new apartment was on the 15th floor, compact, modern, smelling faintly of lemon cleaner. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a forest of high-rises. She unpacked slowly, photos of her family taped to the fridge, a small plant she'd smuggled through customs, her favorite throw blanket from home. By nightfall, jet lag hit like a truck. She collapsed onto the bed, staring at the ceiling while the city hummed below. The next morning, orientation at the academy was a blur of handshakes and welcome packets. Her co-teachers were mostly expats, Australian, Canadian, a few Americans, who welcomed her with easy grins and offers of soju later. The Korean staff were polite, efficient, their smiles practiced. One teacher, Jae-yoon, pulled her aside. "You're the first black teacher we've had in a while," she said softly. "Some parents might stare, kids too, just be patient." Aaliyah nodded. "I've dealt with stares before." After orientation, she wandered Gangnam streets to find groceries. The underground malls were labyrinths of beauty counters and bakeries. She bought ramyeon, kimchi, and a bottle of makgeolli for courage. On her way back, arms full of bags, she turned a corner too fast and collided with someone solid. Papers scattered like confetti. A sleek black phone skidded across the pavement. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." Aaliyah dropped to her knees, scrambling to gather the documents. A man crouched beside her, movements precise, unhurried. He wore a charcoal coat that probably cost more than her rent, tailored to perfection. Dark hair swept back, sharp jawline, eyes the color of midnight espresso. He didn't look angry, just mildly inconvenienced, like the universe had delayed his schedule by 3 seconds. "It's fine," he said in flawless English, voice low and calm. He retrieved his phone, checked the screen, then helped collect the last few sheets. Their fingers brushed as she handed him a contract. Electricity, stupid, cliched electricity, shot up her arm. She pulled back quickly. He glanced at her, really glanced, and something flickered in his expression. Recognition, curiosity, it was gone before she could name it. "You're American," he observed. "Guilty," she stood, brushing off her jeans. "Just moved here, still learning how sidewalks work." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Seoul sidewalks have a mind of their own. He was tall, taller than most Korean men she'd seen so far, and carried himself with the quiet authority of someone who never had to raise his voice to be heard. No wedding ring, not that she was looking. "Thank you again," he said, bowing slightly, a small, formal gesture that felt oddly intimate. "Be careful out here." He walked away, disappearing into the crowd like smoke. Aaliyah stood there longer than she should have, heart thudding for reasons she couldn't explain. Later that evening, as she sat on her tiny balcony with a cup of tea, watching the city lights pulse, she replayed the moment. Just a stranger, just an accident. But something about his eyes lingered, like a promise, or a warning, that Seoul had more in store for her than she'd bargained for. Subscribe now so you don't miss the next story. The Academy's first week passed in a haze of lesson plans, nervous laughter, and the constant click of chalk on smartboards. Aaliyah's classes were a mix of eager teenagers and a few adults brushing up on business English. She kept her energy high, her smile wide, turning every curious stare into a teaching moment. "Yes, my hair is real," she'd say with a wink when a student inevitably asked. "And no, it doesn't hurt to braid it." Laughter usually followed, and the room relaxed. Jae-yoon became her unofficial guide. Over cafeteria kimbap and iced Americanos, she explained the unspoken rules. Don't wear shoes indoors, bow when greeting elders, and never pour your own drink at dinner. "You'll get used to it," Jae-yoon promised. "Soul grows on you." Aaliyah wanted to believe her. Nights were the hardest. She'd scroll through photos of old friends at brunches she wasn't invited to anymore, then force herself to put the phone down and step onto the balcony. The city never slept. She began nomming the buildings, the one with the red crown logo, the twisted glass tower that looked like it was melting, the sleek black monolith that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. On Friday, the staff went out for welcome drinks at a Pajang matcha tent near the station. Plastic stools, steaming tea tteokbokki, bottles of soju passed in quick succession. Aaliyah matched them shot for shot until the world softened at the edges. Someone started karaoke in the corner tent next door. The melody of a trot song drifted over, absurd and infectious. She excused herself for air, stepping into the narrow alley. The cold bit her cheeks. She leaned against a wall, breathing steam, when she saw him again. He was walking alone, phone to his ear, coat collar turned up against the wind. Same charcoal wool, same effortless stride. He ended the call, pocketed the phone, and his gaze swept the street, then locked on her. Recognition flashed across his face, quick as a spark. He hesitated, then crossed the alley toward her. "Still learning the sidewalks?" he asked, voice carrying that same calm authority. Aaliyah laughed despite herself. "Apparently not, you." "I live nearby." He gestured vaguely toward the glittering towers. "Late meeting." At 10 p.m. on a Friday, she raised an eyebrow. "Workaholic." "Something like that." His eyes traced her face, not leering but deliberate, like he was memorizing details. "You're the new teacher." She blinked. "How do you?" "Word travels in Gangnam." A small, private smile. "Especially when someone new stands out." Heat crept up her neck. She blamed the soju. "I'm Aaliyah." Min-jae. He extended a hand, Western style, but his bow was slight, respectful. His palm was warm, fingers long and steady. The handshake lingered half a second too long. From the tent, someone called her name. Jae-yoon waved, holding up another bottle. "I should go back," Aaliyah said, reluctant. Min-jae nodded. "Enjoy your night." Then, quieter, "If you ever need a guide who knows these streets better than Google Maps, I'm around." She tilted her head. "Is that an offer, Min-jae?" "It's whatever you want it to be." His tone was light, but his eyes weren't. He turned to leave, then paused. "One thing, be careful with the soju. It sneaks up on you." She watched him disappear around the corner, broad shoulders cutting through the crowd like he owned the night. Her heart was doing that stupid thud again. Back at the table, Jae-yoon leaned in, eyes bright with gossip. "Who was that?" "No idea," Aaliyah lied, cheeks still warm. "Just someone I bumped into last week." Jae-yoon smirked. Seoul is small when it wants to be. Later, alone in her apartment, Aaliyah stood at the window again. Somewhere out there, in one of those dark towers, Min-jae was probably still working, or maybe thinking about her the way she was thinking about him. Dangerous thought. She poured a glass of water, drank it slowly, and told herself it was nothing. Just a handsome stranger, just Seoul working its magic. But when she finally crawled into bed, his name lingered on her tongue like the aftertaste of good wine. Min-jae. And somewhere across the glittering city, in a penthouse office high above Gangnam, Kang Min-jae stared at the contract he'd dropped that first day, the one she'd helped him pick up, and smiled for the first time in months. Saturday morning arrived with weak winter sunlight filtering through the blinds. Aaliyah woke to the smell of coffee she hadn't made yet. Jae-yoon had texted at dawn. "Emergency brunch. My treat. Meet me at cafe layered in 30. She threw on leggings, an oversized sweater, and her favorite hoop earrings, then headed out. Gangnam felt different on weekends, less frantic, more leisurely. Couples lingered at crosswalks, families pushed strollers, and street musicians played soft acoustic covers of K-pop hits. Cafe Layered was tucked into a side street, all exposed brick, hanging plants, and the rich aroma of freshly ground beans. Jae-yoon waved from a corner table already loaded with croissants, matcha pancakes, and 2 towering lattes. "You look like you survived your first week," Jae-yoon teased, pushing a plate toward her. "Barely." "Barely," Aaliyah agreed, sinking into the chair. "But I'm still standing." They talked for hours, about students, dadding horror stories, the best late-night convenience store finds. Then Jae-yoon's expression turned conspiratorial. "So about Friday night, that man in the alley." Aaliyah nearly choked on her latte. "What about him?" Jae-yoon leaned forward. "I saw his face when the light hit it. That was Kang Min-jae." The name landed like a dropped stone in still water. Aaliyah frowned. "Should I know that name?" Jae-yoon's eyes widened. "Only if you've lived under a rock for the last decade. Kang Group. Tech, real estate, luxury hotels, entertainment. He's basically Korean royalty without the crown. Youngest CEO in their history. Single. And apparently he knows your name now." Aaliyah stared at her plate. The pancakes suddenly looked too sweet. "It was just a conversation. 2 minutes tops." 2 minutes is enough in this city," Jae-yoon grinned. "He doesn't talk to random people, ever." Aaliyah waved it off, but the rest of brunch passed in a strange haze. Kang Min-jae, billionaire, CEO, the man whose fingers had brushed hers twice now. She spent the afternoon wandering, in Sadong for souvenirs, Bukshan Hanok Village for photos of traditional rooftops against modern skyline. By dusk, she was exhausted, feet aching, ready to collapse. Her phone buzzed as she stepped into the elevator of her building. Unknown number. "Good evening, Aaliyah. This is Min-jae. I hope this isn't too forward. Jae-yoon gave me your number, said you might appreciate a proper Seoul welcome. There's a small private viewing at the Liam Museum tomorrow evening. Contemporary art, quiet crowd. I'd like to show you the city through different eyes. If you're free, I'll send a car at 6. No pressure." She stared at the screen until it dimmed. Her thumb hovered over the reply button for a full minute. Finally, she typed, "I'd like that. See you tomorrow." The response came almost instantly. "I'll look forward to it. Wear something warm. January nights are unpredictable." She set the phone down, heart racing like she'd just run a sprint. The next evening, she stood in front of her mirror in a fitted black turtleneck dress, knee-high boots, and a long camel coat she'd bought on impulse last winter. Gold hoops, minimal makeup, braids swept into a low bun. Simple, elegant, herself. At exactly 6:00 p.m., a sleek black Genesis sedan pulled up outside. The driver opened the door with a polite bow. No logo, no flash, just quiet luxury. The museum was in Hanamdong, perched on a hill overlooking the Han River. When she arrived, Min-jae was waiting at the entrance in a tailored navy suit, no tie, top button undone. He looked almost unfairly composed. "You came," he said, and there was genuine surprise beneath the calm. "Curiosity won," she admitted. He offered his arm, old-fashioned, charming. She took it. Inside, the gallery was dimly lit, spotlights on massive abstract canvases and delicate installations. Only a handful of guests, all speaking in low tones. No photographers, no press. Private. They walked slowly, He didn't dominate the conversation. He asked questions about Atlanta, about why Korea, about what she missed most. She answered honestly. He listened like every word mattered. At a sculpture of twisted steel and glass that looked like frozen lightning, he stopped. "This one always reminds me of the moment before something changes," he said quietly. "Everything looks the same, but the air feels different." Aaliyah met his gaze. "You feel that too?" "Every day lately." The silence stretched, charged. He glanced at his watch. "There's a rooftop terrace, better view of the city if you're not too cold." She smiled. "Lead the way." They stepped outside into crisp night air. Seoul glittered below like scattered diamonds. The Han River cut a dark ribbon through the lights. Min-jae stood beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, cedar and something faintly smoky. "Thank you for this," she said softly. "It's more than I expected." He turned to face her fully. "I could say the same." For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then he reached out, slowly, and tucked a loose braid behind her ear. His fingers lingered against her cheek. "Tell me to stop," he murmured. She didn't. Instead, she rose on her toes and kissed him, soft at first, testing. He responded like he'd been waiting years. Gentle, then deeper, one hand at her waist, the other cradling her face. When they parted, breath visible in the cold, he rested his forehead against hers. "I didn't plan this," he said, voice rough. "Good," she whispered. "Neither did I." Somewhere below, the city kept moving. Up here, time felt optional. The kiss on the rooftop didn't end when they left the museum. It lingered in the car ride back, quiet glances, fingers brushing on the leather seat between them, the city lights streaking past like comets. Min-jae didn't push. He asked if she wanted to stop for late-night ramyeon at a 24-hour place near her building. She said yes. They sat on plastic stools at a tiny pajangmatcha counter, steam rising from 2 bowls of spicy jjajangmyeon. The ajumma behind the counter eyed them curiously but said nothing, just slid over extra kimchi. Min-jae ate neatly, chopsticks precise. Aaliyah twirled noodles with practiced ease, laughing when sauce dotted her chin. "You're surprisingly good with those," he observed. "Atlanta has decent Korean spots. I learned the hard way. Forks get you side-eye." He smiled, small and real. "I like that you fight for the side-eye." They talked until the bowls were empty and the tense plastic sheets rattled in the wind. He walked her to her building lobby. No doorman at this hour, just the soft hum of the elevator waiting. At her door, she hesitated. "Do you want to come up, coffee or not coffee?" His gaze darkened, but he shook his head slowly. "Not tonight." She raised an eyebrow, playing hard to get. "I'm playing careful." He stepped closer, voice dropping. "I want this to be more than impulse. You deserve more than impulse." Aaliyah's chest tightened. Surprise, warmth, a flicker of fear. She hadn't expected restraint from a man who could have anything. "Okay," she said softly. "Careful it is." He leaned in, kissed her forehead, lingering, tender, then stepped back. "Good night, Aaliyah." She watched the elevator doors close on his retreating figure, heart pounding harder than it had on the rooftop. Monday brought reality crashing back. Classes, gradding, staff meetings, but now every quiet moment carried his name. A text arrived mid-morning. "Lunch, there's a place near your school, private room, 1 p.m. Min-jae." She replied yes before second-guessing herself. The restaurant was hidden on the 5th floor of an unassuming building. Modern Korean fusion, sliding doors, low tables, soft jazz. Min-jae was already there, sleeves rolled up, looking less like a CEO and more like a man who'd cleared his entire afternoon. They ate grilled black pork, banchan, and rice wrapped in lettuce. Conversation flowed easily. Her favorite students, his latest project, something vague about AI ethics and urban planning, the way Seoul smelled different after rain. Halfway through, he set his chopsticks down. "I need to tell you something." She stilled. "Okay." "I don't do this, casual dates, public curiosity. My life is watched. Tabloids, board members, family expectations. If we continue, people will notice." They'll talk. About you, about us. Aaliyah met his eyes. I've been noticed my whole life, Min-jae. Different skin, different hair, different accent. I'm used to eyes on me. Question is, can you handle it? He exhaled, almost a laugh. I've spent years building walls so no one gets close enough to matter. You slipped through in 2 collisions and 1 rooftop. Then we're both in trouble. He reached across the table, palm up. She placed her hand in his. His thumb traced slow circles over her knuckles. I want to see you again, he said. Properly, dinner, Friday, my place, I cook. You cook? Badly, but I try. She grinned. Deal, but only if there's wine, good wine. Done. Friday evening, she arrived at his building in Hanam-dong, a sleek glass tower that screamed money without shouting it. The private elevator opened directly into his penthouse. Open plan, minimalist, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Han River like a living painting. Warm wood floors, low furniture, abstract art that looked quietly expensive. Min-jae met her in a black cashmere sweater and dark jeans, apron tied around his waist. He looked nervous, actually nervous, and it made her heart do a ridiculous flip. Smells like burning, she teased, stepping inside. Only a little. He gestured to the kitchen island where 2 wine glasses waited, a bottle of Bordeaux already breathing. I ordered backup sushi just in case. They ended up on the living room floor, backs against the sofa, plates balanced on knees, laughing over his failed attempt at Gal by J-Gym. The city glittered beyond the glass like it was showing off just for them. Later, after dishes were abandoned, he pulled her close on the wide sectional. No rush, just kissing, slow, deep, exploratory. His hands learned the curve of her waist, the line of her spine. Hers traced the sharp edge of his jaw, the steady beat at his throat. When they finally pulled apart, breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. I'm falling, he whispered, faster than I planned. Aaliyah smiled against his lips. Good, catch up. Outside, Seoul pulsed on, indifferent. Inside, 2 worlds that shouldn't have met were quietly rewriting the rules. The first time, they made love it wasn't planned. It happened on a Thursday, ordinary, humid, the kind of Seoul summer evening where the air clung to skin like a second layer. Aaliyah had stayed late at the academy grading essays. Min-jae had texted mid-afternoon. I'm in the neighborhood. Can I steal you for dinner? She replied, only if it's air-conditioned. He picked her up in the black Genesis, windows tinted, AC blasting cold enough to raise goosebumps on her arms. They ended up at a discreet rooftop restaurant in Itaewon, low lights, jazz piano, a table tucked against a glass railing overlooking the city's glittering sprawl. No one stared. No phones were raised. For once, they were just 2 people sharing grilled eel and chilled steak. Conversation drifted from light to heavy. She told him about the student who'd written an essay comparing K-dramas to Greek tragedies. He admitted he'd never finished one. Too predictable, he said. I prefer real endings. She raised her glass. To unpredictable endings. They clinked. The steak burned sweet down her throat. After dinner, neither wanted the night to end. He suggested a drive. She suggested her place, closer, quieter. The ride was silent except for the soft hum of the engine and the occasional brush of his fingers against hers on the center console. In the elevator up to her 15th floor, the space felt smaller than it ever had. He stood behind her, close enough she could feel the heat radiating off him. When the doors opened, she stepped out first. He followed. Inside her apartment, the city lights painted stripes across the floor. She kicked off her sandals. He removed his shoes neatly, lining them beside hers. Small rituals that felt suddenly intimate. She turned to offer him wine. He was already there, 2 steps away, eyes dark and steady. Tell me to leave, he said, voice low. She stepped closer instead. Stay. The kiss started slow, exploratory, like they were still learning each other's edges. Then it shifted, hungrier, urgent. His hands slid under her blouse, palms warm against her back. She tugged at his shirt buttons, impatient. Fabric hit the floor in soft heaps. They moved toward the bedroom in a tangle of limbs and laughter. When she tripped over the throw rug, he caught her, lifting her effortlessly so her legs wrapped around his waist. She kissed the hollow of his throat. He groaned against her neck. On the bed, time blurred. He took his time, kissing every inch of skin he uncovered, murmuring Korean words she didn't fully understand but felt in her bones. She arched under him, fingers in his hair, guiding, demanding. When he finally slid inside her, slow and careful, their eyes locked. No words, just breath mingling, bodies finding rhythm. Afterward, they lay tangled in sheets, sweat cooling on skin, city hum filtering through the window. He traced lazy circles on her hip. "You okay?" he asked softly. She turned her face into his chest. "More than okay." He kissed her forehead. "Good, because I'm not letting you go tonight." She laughed quietly, possessive. "Only with you." They talked in the dark, about childhoods, fears, dreams they'd never said aloud. He confessed he sometimes felt like the city owned him more than he owned anything else. She admitted she still woke up some mornings wondering if she'd made the right choice coming here. "You did," he said, pulling her closer, "because I found you." She fell asleep to the steady beat of his heart, his arm heavy across her waist. Morning light woke them. He made coffee in her tiny kitchen, black for him, cream and sugar for her. They drank it on the balcony, wrapped in the same blanket, watching the city wake up. She leaned against his shoulder. "What now?" He set his mug down, turned her to face him. "Now we keep choosing each other, every day. No matter what the headlines say, or my mother, or the board, just us." She smiled, small and sure. "I like that plan." He kissed her, soft this time, morning sweet. Outside, Seoul kept moving. Inside, something permanent was beginning to take root. The next 2 weeks felt like living inside a snow globe, beautiful, fragile, constantly shaken. Min-jae's schedule was brutal. Dawn meetings in Singapore time, late-night calls with Tokyo investors, boardroom battles disguised as polite discussions. Yet every evening he found time. A quick video call while she graded papers, his tie loosened and sleeves rolled. A surprise delivery of her favorite macarons from a tiny French patisserie in Itaewon. A midnight walk along the Han River when the city finally quieted. Aaliyah started noticing the small signs of his world pressing in. First, the glances. At a quiet izakaya near his office, a group of sharply dressed men at the next table stared longer than curiosity warranted. One pulled out his phone, subtly, but she caught the flash. Min-jae's jaw tightened. He paid the bill immediately and guided her out the back door. "Sorry," he murmured in the car. "Some people still think privacy is negotiable." She squeezed his hand. "I'm not fragile, Min-jae." "I know, but I hate that you have to prove it." Then came the article. She found it on Naver while scrolling during lunch break. A blurry photo, her laughing outside his building, his arm around her waist. Headline: Kang Min-jae's mystery woman, foreign teacher or calculated move. The comments were a mix of awe, envy, and venom. Words like gold digger, exotic taste. What will Chairman Kang say? Scrolled past in Hangul she could only half translate. Jaeyoon forwarded her the English version from Dispatch's international feed with a single emoji. Aaliyah stared at her phone until the screen went dark. That night she showed him the article on his couch, wine forgotten on the table. He read in silence, expression unreadable. Then he set the tablet down. "I should have warned you better," he said quietly. "This is what happens when someone like me chooses someone like me," she finished. "Black, foreign, not from one of the approved chaebol families." He winced. "I was going to say real." She stood, packing to the window. The Han River looked colder tonight, lights fracturing on black water. "I'm not ashamed of us," she said, "but I didn't sign up to be dissected. I came here for a fresh start, not to become someone's scandal." Min-jae rose, crossing the room slowly. "You're not a scandal. You're the best thing that's happened to me in years, and I'm not letting gossip rewrite that." He turned her to face him, hands gentle on her arms. "I can make calls, kill the follow-ups, keep our names out of the press for a while." She searched his eyes. "And what happens when you can't? When your board pressures you, or your family decides I'm a liability?" His silence was answer enough. She exhaled. I need space to think, just a few days. He nodded once, jaw tight. Whatever you need. She left without kissing him goodbye. The elevator ride down felt endless. The next 3 days were quiet torture. She threw herself into work, extra office hours, weekend lesson planning, anything to keep her mind occupied. Jae-yoon tried to drag her out. She declined. Nights were spent on the balcony staring at the same skyline that once felt full of promise. On the 4th day, a small package arrived at her door. No sender name, just her name in neat Hangul and English. Inside, a leather-bound journal, cream pages, and a single-pressed magnolia flower between the first 2 sheets. Tucked beneath it, a handwritten note on thick cream cardstock. Aaliyah. I've spent my life collecting things, art, companies, wins. None of them ever felt like enough. Then I met you, and suddenly everything I owned seemed small next to one honest conversation. I don't want to own you. I want to earn the right to stand beside you, even when the cameras flash and the comments burn. If you decide this is too much, I'll respect it. But know that I'm willing to fight for us, quietly, fiercely, however you need. The flower is from the tree outside my childhood home. My mother planted it the year I was born. She always said magnolias bloom strongest after the coldest winters. Take your time. I'm not going anywhere. Min-jae. She sat on the floor with the note in her hands until her legs went numb. Outside, snow began to fall, soft, silent, blanketing Seoul in white. She picked up her phone. One word. Come over. 20 minutes later, the private elevator dinged. He stepped out in a black coat dusted with snow, hair slightly damp, eyes uncertain for the first time since she'd known him. She didn't speak. She just walked straight into his arms. He held her like something precious and breakable, breathing her in. I'm scared, she whispered against his chest. Me too, he admitted, but I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. Snow tapped against the windows like quiet applause. They stayed like that a long time, 2 people choosing each other in the middle of a storm neither had seen coming. Spring arrived in Seoul like an apology, cherry blossoms exploding along the Han River paths, pink petals drifting like slow snow, softening the city's sharp edges. Aaliyah walked under the trees near Uedo every weekend now, camera in hand, capturing the fleeting beauty. Min-jae joined her when he could, stealing hours between board meetings. They held hands openly these days. The initial frenzy of headlines had dulled into occasional sidebar mentions. Most days it felt like they'd won. Until the invitation arrived. Heavy cream cardstock, gold-embossed crest of the Kang family. Hand-delivered by a driver in a charcoal suit who bowed deeply and left without a word. Dinner at the family estate in Seongbuk-dong. Saturday, 7:00 p.m. Formal attire requested. Mrs. Kang Min-jae requests the pleasure of your company. Aaliyah stared at the card on her kitchen counter for a full minute before texting Min-jae. Your mother knows my name now. His reply came in under 30 seconds. She's known for weeks. I didn't want to scare you. I'll be there the whole time, promise. She spent the next days in quiet panic. Jae-yoon helped her shop for a dress, deep emerald silk, off the shoulder, elegant without trying too hard. You look like royalty, Jae-yoon said, adjusting the hem. They're royalty. Saturday evening, the black Genesis sedan collected her again. Min-jae waited in the back seat, tuxedo impeccable, a single white magnolia pinned to his lapel. You're beautiful, he said as she slid in beside him. I'm terrified, she admitted. He took her hand, thumb stroking her knuckles the way he always did when the world felt too loud. They're just people, rich, stubborn people, but still people. The Kang estate was hidden behind high stone walls and ancient ginkgo trees. Lanterns lit the long driveway. When the car stopped, 2 staff members opened the doors in perfect unison. Inside, the house was a blend of old Korea and cold modernity. Dark wood beams, hangy paper screens, minimalist furniture that probably cost more than most people's homes. Mrs. Kang Min-jae waited in the receiving room, petite, silver hair in a flawless chignon, wearing a charcoal hanbok reimagined as high fashion. Her smile was polite, practiced, and didn't reach her eyes. "Ms. Thompson," she said, voice smooth as river stone. "Welcome." Aaliyah bowed slightly, deeper than she'd practiced. "Thank you for inviting me, Mrs. Kang." Min-ye's hand rested lightly at the small of her back, a silent anchor. Dinner was served in a long room overlooking a private garden of bonsai and stone lanterns. 8 courses, each more delicate than the last. Conversation stayed surface level at first. Weather, the cherry blossoms, Aaliyah's teaching work. Then Mrs. Kang set her chopsticks down. "You've made quite an impression on my son," she said, folding her hands. "He speaks of little else lately." Aaliyah met her gaze. "He speaks highly of you, too." A flicker, something like amusement, crossed the older woman's face. "He is loyal, perhaps too loyal. Loyalty can blind a man to practicalities." Min-ye's jaw tightened. "Mother." Mrs. Kang ignored him, eyes still on Aaliyah. "Our family has obligations. Shareholders, alliances, legacy. You understand legacy, I'm sure, in your culture as well." Aaliyah felt heat rise in her chest. "My culture values love and choice, not boardroom mergers." The room stilled. Mrs. Kang tilted her head. "Love is beautiful, temporary, legacy endures." Min-ye set his napkin down. "Enough." His mother raised a brow. "You brought her here to face this, Min-ye. Let her hear it." Aaliyah placed her hand over his under the table, squeezing once. Then she spoke, voice steady. "I didn't come to Seoul looking for a billionaire. I came looking for myself. What I found was him. If that threatens your legacy, then maybe your legacy needs re-examining." Silence stretched like taut silk. Mrs. Kang studied her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled, small, real, almost approving. "You have spine," she said. "That's rare." She rose. "Dessert will be served in the garden room. I think the night air will do us good." Outside, under a canopy of early-blooming wisteria, the mood shifted. Mrs. Kang poured tea herself, ceremonial, slow, deliberate. She handed Aaliyah a cup first. "I was once a woman who chose love over expectation," she said quietly. "It cost me dearly. I do not wish that pain for my son." Aaliyah cradled the warm porcelain. "Then don't make him choose." Mrs. Kang looked at Min-ye, who stood a few paces away watching them both. Something softened in her expression. "Perhaps," she murmured, "it is time I stopped trying to protect him from happiness." Later, in the car ride home, Min-ye exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. "She liked you," he said. Aaliyah laughed shaky. "She didn't hate me, that's progress." He pulled her close, kissing her temple. "You were fearless." "I was scared out of my mind." "Same thing." Petals drifted past the tinted windows like pale confetti. Seoul glittered ahead, unchanged yet somehow different. Back in her apartment, they stood at the window watching the city breathe. "I'm not running," she whispered. He turned her to face him, hands framing her face. "Neither am I." Outside, the cherry blossoms continued to fall. Soft, relentless, beautiful proof that even the coldest seasons end. Summer settled over Seoul like warm silk. The cherry blossoms had long given way to green canopies and the lazy hum of cicadas. Aaliyah's contract was up for renewal in 2 weeks. She hadn't signed yet. She sat on the same balcony where she'd first watched the city lights pulse with uncertainty, now sipping iced barley tea and scrolling through job offers. Another year in Gangnam, a promotion to curriculum coordinator, a quiet life she'd built brick by careful brick. Min-ye had been away for 10 days, Tokyo, then Shanghai, sealing a deal that would keep Kang Group ahead for another decade. He texted every morning and called every night, voice tired but steady. No pressure about the contract. No ultimatums. Just, "I miss your laugh and tell me about your day." Tonight the sky was bruised purple, promising rain. Her phone buzzed. "Home in 20. Meet me at the river. Same bench we sat on in April." She smiled despite the knot in her stomach. She changed into jeans, a soft white blouse, and the thin silver bracelet he'd given her after the family dinner, simple, engraved with a single magnolia petal. The Han River path was alive with evening joggers, couples on rented bikes, children chasing bubbles. She found their bench under the same weeping willow. Min-jae arrived minutes later, still in his travel suit, tie gone, sleeves rolled to the elbows. He looked road-weary and unfairly handsome. He didn't sit. He stood in front of her, hands in pockets, studying her face like he was memorizing it all over again. "You're glowing," he said. "Summer agrees with me." She patted the bench. "Sit, you look like you need to." He did, close enough that their thighs touched. For a moment they just watched the water, dark, reflective, carrying the city's lights like scattered coins. "I renewed the lease on my apartment today," she said quietly. His shoulders eased a fraction. "Good. But I haven't signed the teaching contract." He turned to her then, eyes searching. "I've been thinking," she continued, "about what I want, not just for now, for the next chapter. Korea gave me a fresh start. You gave me something bigger. I don't want to keep measuring my life in one-year contracts." Min-jae stayed silent, letting her speak. "I applied for permanent residency," she said. "It's a long process, but I started it. And I've been looking at graduate programs, education policy, maybe something with international focus. Seoul has good ones." His breath caught, soft but audible. "And you?" she asked, voice barely above the river's murmur. "What do you want, Min-jae, really?" He reached for her hand, threading their fingers together. "I want mornings where I wake up and you're still there. I want evenings where we argue about what to watch and then watch nothing because we're too busy kissing. I want you at every holiday table, mine, yours when we visit Atlanta, wherever. I want the world to know you're mine and I'm yours, no hiding, no careful wording in press releases." He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. Aaliyah's heart slammed against her ribs. He opened it. Inside, a platinum band with a single oval diamond, clean, brilliant, flanked by 2 tiny emerald chips that matched the dress she'd worn to meet his mother. "I'm not asking for forever tonight," he said. "I'm asking if you'll consider it, if you'll let me build a life with you here or anywhere you choose. No timelines, no boardroom approvals, just us." Tears pricked her eyes. She laughed through them. "You're proposing with consider it." "I'm proposing with honesty," he smiled, small and nervous. "I've spent years controlling outcomes. I don't want to control this. I want you to choose me every day the way I'll choose you." She looked at the ring, then at him, really looked. The man who'd once been a stranger on a Gangnam sidewalk, who'd learned her silences, her laughter, her fears. Who fought quietly for them when the world tried to pull them apart. She lifted her left hand. "Yes," she whispered. "I'll consider it every single day, starting now." He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Then he kissed her, slow, deep, tasting of airplane coffee and relief and everything they'd survived to reach this moment. Rain began to fall, soft at first, then steady. They didn't move. Petals from nearby trees stuck to their hair and shoulders like confetti. Somewhere a street musician played a slow acoustic version of a song neither recognized, but it felt like theirs. When the rain eased, he stood and offered his hand. "Come home with me," he asked. She took it, always. They walked back along the river path, fingers laced, ring catching every passing light. Seoul stretched out around them, neon and hanok roofs, old and new, foreign and familiar, exactly the way she'd first seen it. Only this time, she wasn't arriving alone. She was already home. Hello, guys. Please click the subscribe button.